very bad companies selling tokens right now. Not bad in a fraudulent sense, just bad in like not a good technology sort of sense. So there's a lot of bad investments out there. And so that's why we keep a really sort of high quality bar for the deals on CoinList that we're actually willing to market to investors. In particular, our one part of our diligence standard, in addition to sort of technical diligence we do, is we sort of require any company that we market to have sort of a co-investor at roughly the same terms, who's one of, say, the top like 5 or 6 credible investors in this space. So that'll be a top cryptocurrency hedge fund like Metastable or Polychain, or a top VC like USV or Andreessen. So we're really looking at those sort of either VCs or hedge funds who are known to do pretty substantial diligence on these companies as additional signal in order to sort of ensure that at least the deals that we're marketing to investors are good deals. But so far we've only marketed 3 deals to investors. We have many more companies that kind of use our compliance infrastructure in sort of a white label capacity, but we just don't market those to investors because they don't meet that very high bar that we're trying to set. I can't remember if there was a second part to your question. Did that answer it?
That did.
Okay.
But also as part of that, everyone always talks about investing in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Is an ICO different than a cryptocurrency? And if so, how are they different?
Well, so an ICO is just the fundraising process, right? The cryptocurrencies are sold in the ICO to investors. So another word for cryptocurrency is tokens. The tokens are sold to investors. So you can imagine back in the day, there could have been some ICO for Bitcoin, and there was an ICO for Ethereum. So I think that answers your question.
And can investors take out, so if I invest in an ICO, can I take out my cryptocurrency at any point that I would like?
Not necessarily, but that's due to US securities law. Well, I guess there's a couple things, right?
Yeah.
Typically in these ICOs, you're buying a SAFT, which is it's a legal contract. You don't actually get your tokens until the network launches. And often in these sales, like I said, the tokens or these SAFs that sort of represent a future right to the tokens, those are being sold in advance of the company having been fully built, the network having been fully built. So often you don't get your tokens at least until the network is launched, but also sometimes there are securities laws that also require you to hold the tokens for at least 1 year. Moreover, it's sort of unclear whether after network launch the tokens are considered securities or not. Most people, because in the blockchain space at least, kind of say that they're no longer securities once the network is launched, but that's not necessarily guaranteed. That's not codified into law, and the SEC could decide that's not the case. And if they do decide that a lot of these tokens are actually securities after network launch, there will be further restrictions on what you can do with them and how you can trade them.
Right. Okay, so now projecting out to the future, where do you see CoinList specifically going, 5-10 years from now?
Yeah, well, so today we're sort of focused on being this, at least being this platform to help companies sort of run their token sales. And in general, I think we just want to be this financing arm for the next generation of technology companies. So what does that mean? Well, one part is this, are these ICOs, which are somewhat analogous to IPOs. And I think probably the way these token companies get financed, do their fundraising rounds will change over time. And we'll kind of adjust and sort of help support them. Another thing that we want to do is to become sort of an exchange for security tokens. And so we have this belief at CoinList that a lot of traditional financial assets are going to get tokenized, meaning that they're going to be in some form converted into tokens or smart contracts and traded on a blockchain. And there are many reasons why we believe that this is the case. Some of them are technological, but I actually believe that those are weaker reasons why I think a lot of traditional financial assets will get tokenized. I think the real reason, and by the way, traditional financial assets, I'm literally talking about anything that can be securitized. So real estate profit interest or startup equity or whatever, any of this stuff could be tokenized and tracked on a blockchain and traded on an exchange. And so why is this going to happen? Well, one reason we think this will happen is because there's just a lot of people who have a lot of money in crypto who desperately want to diversify. These are people who have a lot of Bitcoin or a lot of Ethereum, but they also want to stay in crypto. They don't want to convert back to fiat. And so why not? Well, a lot of them are international, so there are sort of tax benefits for staying in crypto. Another reason is just this sort of social or political belief that decentralized systems are better, that they don't trust banks or governments, and they prefer to sort of keep their financial assets. And the idea that we have for traditional finance being tokenized and sort of traded and tracked in the blockchain system actually comes to fruition. I already talked about that. I think the other thing that I'm interested in is just interested in sort of how decentralized applications end up competing with sort of the centralized incumbents that already exist. Like there are people who legitimately think that sort of decentralized Facebook, decentralized Uber are fundamentally better than centralized versions, and also that there are reasons to believe that they can actually succeed. I'm a little skeptical just because I think these sort of Web 2.0 incumbents, not only are they defensible for the obvious reasons, network effects and the moats that they have, but also because they don't abuse their sort of monopoly power that much in the marketplace. Typically, Facebook is an intention marketplace. Amazon is I guess just an e-commerce marketplace. But if you think about what they do in their marketplace in terms of sort of abusing their monopoly power, if you will, they kind of squeeze the supply side of their marketplace, right? So Facebook squeezes advertisers, Amazon squeezes sort of like literally product suppliers, right? And they try to suck as much money from them as possible. But then they sort of return that value to users in the form of lower prices or better service. They don't necessarily take all that profit from themselves. And Amazon, unprofitable company, just kind of a well-known thing. And so for that reason, because they don't actually abuse their monopoly power, I think that just makes them extremely hard to sort of disrupt. That said, there are reasons to think decentralized applications can, over the long term, sort of take market share from them. Chris Dixon has some interesting arguments about this. If you want to Google it, I think I should probably shut up though and let you guys ask some questions. But.
Cool. All right. I guess we'll open it up to the audience for questions.
I guess so. 2 questions. First off is, do you guys provide advisory services, and if so, what are the fees for a company to list? And then the next part of that is, so recently, especially in 2018, you've seen regulators sort of crack down. I mean, there was an article this morning, or today, I guess this week, that came out from the Wall Street Journal saying that SEC basically issued a wave of subpoenas. They're evaluating a bunch of things, including the SAP and whether it violates sort of securities regulations. Would love to hear your thoughts on that, especially to the extent it kind of impacts or affects your guys' business.
Yeah. Okay, so first, advisory services. No, we don't offer any today, although potentially we will in the future. So that's that. The securities law stuff, yeah, it's interesting. I'll say, first off, it's no news that all these companies are getting subpoenaed. I think every company that's sort of run a public sale on CoinList, when I say public, I mean accredited only, but sort of a broadly marketed sale on CoinList, has been sort of subpoenaed or investigated by the SEC. They're doing their diligence, right? They're also being relatively sort of thoughtful in their process. And CoinList is kind of considered a good actor by them in terms of, we're at least trying to make the best effort to comply with US securities law. They're very aware that, the stuff is all new and it is all a gray area. And in general with securities law, and this goes beyond just like crypto, but also when it comes to like startup securities and stuff, often it's kind of a best effort sort of thing. A lot of securities law is a gray area. And so if you kind of can kind of show that you did your best to sort of comply with the law and you had good lawyers, etc., typically the SEC doesn't actually come down on you that hard. So we feel pretty confident that the companies that have sort of been raising on CoinList and following best practice as well as we know how, as well as the industry knows how, as well as the top lawyers in the space know how, will be okay. That said, I mean, the regulatory landscape may shift and we'll have to shift in response to that.